The alarm klaxons echoed through the crystalline corridors of Outpost Vex 9, the furthest monitoring station of the Stellar Coalition. Senior observer Thelnar's bioluminescent markings flashed deep purple with concern as he studied the anomalous readings. "Sub-Commander, these energy signatures conform to no known species profile," he reported, mandibles clicking nervously. "The vessel's approach vector suggests deliberate navigation, not drift." Sub-Commander Zinvar leaned forward, her enhanced eyes narrowing at the holographic display. 20 cycles of border patrol had taught her to trust anomalies as reliable indicators of trouble. "Full spectrum analysis," she ordered, "and notify Admiral Zortal's fleet immediately." As the outpost quantum communicators relayed the alert, the mysterious vessel continued its steady approach toward Vexarian space. Its hull configuration defied Coalition classification algorithms. Asymmetrical in design, with visible patches and modifications that suggested numerous repairs and adaptations. 12 hours later, Admiral Zortal's battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 26 warships arranged in the sacred geometric pattern that had brought the Vexarians 5 centuries of undefeated military campaigns. Admiral Zortal stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Dominance, his posture rigid with the genetic perfection that marked him as a pure lineage commander. His exoskeleton gleamed with the silvery sheen of one who had undergone all 17 advancements, physical and mental enhancements reserved for the Coalition's most elite military leaders. "Visual confirmation established," announced his tactical officer. "The vessel appears to be primitive, Admiral." "Primitive vessels do not cross interstellar space," Zortal replied sharply. "Maintain defensive formation and initiate containment protocols." The Vexarian fleet encircled the intruder, energy shield humming as weapon systems targeted the vessel's critical points. Boarding teams stood ready in launch bays, their neural implants synchronizing combat strategies. "Vessel identified," reported the science officer with unmistakable confusion in her voice. "It appears to be a modified resource extraction platform. Scans detect approximately 57 life forms aboard with unfamiliar biosignatures. They are broadcasting an audio-visual transmission on multiple frequencies." "Display," ordered Zortal. The central view screen flickered to life, revealing a most unusual sight. The being appeared mammalian, with exposed facial features uncovered by protective exoskeleton. It wore artificial coverings in place of natural armor, and its communication style lacked the formal precision of Coalition standard. "Greetings from Earth and the United Solar Alliance. I am Captain Elena Santos of the Dauntless. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars." Admiral Zortal's internal translator processed the crude language, its syntactic structure surprisingly efficient despite its simplicity. The Admiral's genetic enhancements allowed him to suppress the instinctive revulsion he felt at the sight of such vulnerable physiology. These creatures had no natural defenses, no claws, minimal musculature, thin dermal layers susceptible to radiation and micrometeorite penetration. "Bring their vessel into the primary holding bay," he ordered. "Full quarantine protocols. I want genetic cataloging and technological assessment completed before first direct contact." As the tractor beams engage, pulling the human vessel toward the Inevitable Dominance, Zortal received a priority communication from Coalition Central Command. "Admiral, your assessment of the potential threat." Zortal watched as the crude vessel was secured in his ship's massive docking bay, his tactical mind calculating probabilities. "Unknown, Command. Their technology appears primitive, yet they've achieved what our models deemed impossible for such a development stage. Their systems show intuitive adaptations rather than design deficiency. They bear watching. These humans are either extraordinarily lucky, or they possess qualities our metrics cannot measure." Little did the Admiral know just how prophetic his assessment would prove to be. Captain Elena Santos stood with perfect composure as the decontamination field shimmered around her small delegation. The Vexarian docking bay dwarfed the human team, its crystalline architecture and pulsing energy conduits displaying technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. "Remember the briefing," she whispered to her team. "No sudden movements, maintain eye contact when speaking, and follow my lead." Dr. Marcus Chen adjusted his universal translator, his fingers trembling slightly. "Their tech is beyond anything we theorized. Those energy relays are manipulating quantum fields we've only hypothesized. Save the scientific fascination for later," Security Chief Rivera cautioned. "They'd surrounded us with what I'm guessing are weapon platforms." The decontamination field dissipated, and a delegation of Vexarians approached. Their bodies resembled humanoid insects, with iridescent exoskeletons and multiple upper limbs moving with precise coordination. The lead figure wore elaborate military insignia across its thorax. "I am Admiral Zortal, primary commander of the Coalition Border Defense. You have illegally entered sovereign territory. Explain your presence and capabilities immediately." Alina stepped forward, maintaining the exact distance the first contact protocol suggested. "Admiral, we thank you for allowing us aboard. We are explorers from Earth, seeking peaceful exchange with other intelligent species. Our sensors detected your communication networks, and we followed the signal pathways to establish contact." The Vexarian officials chittered among themselves, their mandibles clicking in what the humans' translators couldn't process. Admiral Zortal's compound eyes narrowed. "Your vessel utilizes technology inconsistent with interstellar capability. Our analysis indicates it was designed for resource extraction, not space travel. Explain this discrepancy." Alina nodded. "You're correct, Admiral. The Dauntless began as a mining platform. Earth doesn't possess dedicated exploration ships yet, so we modified existing technology. We repurposed mining lasers for space debris clearing and adapted asteroid processing systems for life support regeneration." Security Chief Vexnar stepped forward, his exoskeleton bearing battle scars where regeneration had been denied, a mark of honor among their warriors. "Scans reveal these modifications include offensive capabilities." "Defensive only," Rivera interjected. "Necessary for clearing micrometeorites and space debris." Admiral Zortal raised one limb, silencing further discussion. "You will be escorted to interrogation chambers for thorough assessment. Your vessel will be examined for threat potential. Coalition protocols require full classification of all new species before further interaction." Alina felt the situation slipping away. The Vexarians viewed them as curiosities at best, potential threats at worst. She needed leverage, something to change the power dynamic. During their approach to Vexarian space, her team had intercepted and analyzed countless cultural transmissions. One ritual had appeared repeatedly in their military communications. She noticed the ceremonial insignia on Admiral Zortal's uniform, a complex geometric pattern representing what their analysts believed was an ancient challenge system. Taking a calculated risk, she stepped forward and pointed directly at the symbol. "Admiral Zortal, by the right of equal assessment established in your founding mandate, I invoke the challenge of equal standing." The effect was immediate. The Vexarian security team froze, their compound eyes widening. Admiral Zortal's mandibles clicked rapidly in what the translator identified as extreme surprise. "Impossible," he finally stated. "How could you know of this tradition? It has not been invoked for 8 generations." Alina maintained steady eye contact. "We studied your transmissions carefully before making contact. If you consider us worthy of detention and interrogation, then we are worthy of the challenge, unless your traditions have weakened with time." The subtle questioning of honor was perfectly calculated. Admiral Zortal's posture straightened, his exoskeleton plates shifting to display formal acknowledgement patterns. "The challenge is acknowledged," he declared, his tone revealing his continued shock. "Select your champion, human. The 3 trials will begin in 1 planetary rotation." As the Vexarians departed to prepare, Dr. Chen whispered, "Captain, what exactly did you just get us into?" Alina's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held a spark of triumph. "I've given us a chance, Marcus. They expected submission. They'll get humanity instead." The challenge arena pulsed with bioluminescent light, its hexagonal floor plates shifting subtly as environmental systems adjusted to accommodate both species. Thousands of Vexarians watched from tiered observation platforms, their compound eyes fixed on the central stage, where history was about to unfold. "The challenge of equal standing has 3 components," announced the Arbiter, an ancient Vexarian whose exoskeleton had faded to pale blue with age. "Mind, skill, and courage. Each species has selected their champion. Let them approach." Commander Kelvex strode forward, his enhanced physiology evident in every movement. Neural implants gleamed at his temple, and microservos hummed beneath his battle-scarred exoskeleton. As the Vexarian's foremost tactical specialist, he had overseen 17 successful planetary pacification campaigns. Dr. Marcus Chen approached from the human side, his simple environmental suit a stark contrast to the Vexarian's integrated tech. He adjusted his glasses nervously, an affectation he maintained despite corrective surgery, claiming they helped him think. "The humans select a scientist against our premier warrior," whispered a Vexarian observer. "They must not understand the challenge." Admiral Zortal observed silently. The human choice confused him, but Captain Santos had demonstrated unexpected knowledge already. He would reserve judgment. "The mind challenge begins," declared the Arbiter. "Each champion must solve the Cascade Paradox." The arena center transformed, a holographic puzzle materializing between the competitors. The Cascade Paradox was a notorious problem of quantum computational theory, a self-evolving equation system that changed as solutions were attempted. Kelvex attacked the problem methodically, his neural implants processing variables at superhuman speed. His approach was flawless, optimized by generations of Vexarian computational theory. Marcus studied the entire system first, eyes darting across floating variables. Rather than starting where Kelvex had, he approached from an unexpected angle, identifying pattern relationships instead of solving individual components. "Unorthodox," murmured Captain Santos to Rivera. "He's treating it like a jazz improvisation rather than a fixed equation." Kelvex had processed 62% of the cascade when Marcus made a startling move. He introduced a deliberate error into his calculation, creating a resonance that revealed hidden symmetries in the system. The hologram flickered, then resolved into perfect alignment. "Solution accepted," announced the Arbiter, mandibles clicking in surprise. "The human champion prevails in the mind challenge." The Vexarian audience chittered in disbelief. Kelvex's neural implants flashed red as he reassessed his opponent. "The skill challenge commences," continued the Arbiter. The arena floor reconfigured into a 3-dimensional maze of gravity-shifting platforms. Kelvex moved with perfect precision through the challenge, his enhanced reflexes compensating instantly for each gravity shift. His performance was textbook perfection. Marcus followed a different approach. Rather than fighting the shifting gravity, he used it, letting himself fall strategically before catching handholds, using momentum where the Vexarian used strength. When faced with a seemingly impossible gap, Marcus calculated the platform's oscillation pattern and deliberately jumped short, letting the platform's movement catch him. "Inefficient," noted Admiral Zortal. "Adaptive," countered Elena. Both champions reached the endpoint simultaneously. "The skill challenge results in equal performance," announced the Arbiter. The atmosphere tensed as the final challenge prepared. The courage challenge was traditionally the most dangerous, designed to test resolve under mortal threat. "Final challenge protocols initiated," stated the Arbiter as the arena transformed once more. "May each champion demonstrate the true spirit of their species." The floor beneath both competitors disappeared, revealing a chamber filled with swirling energy currents that the human observers recognized as radiation flows. Marcus glanced toward Captain Santos, who nodded slightly. The message was clear. Show them who we are. News of the unprecedented challenge outcome spread through coalition communication channels faster than authorized. The human champion had not only survived the Courage challenge, but had risked his own safety to rescue Commander Kelvex when a containment field malfunction threatened both competitors with lethal radiation exposure. The resulting stalemate, the first in 7 centuries of challenge history, had forced Admiral Zortal to acknowledge the humans' petition for diplomatic recognition. Within days, representatives from 7 spacefaring species had requested information about these newcomers who had disrupted centuries of established hierarchy. Captain Elena Santos stood at the observation window of their temporary quarters aboard the Coalition diplomatic vessel, Harmonious Convergence, watching the massive ships arrive for the Emergency Assessment Summit. Each represented a distinct civilization, some older than human recorded history. "They're still scanning our ship," reported Security Chief Rivera, reviewing security feeds on her tablet. "The Vexarians can't seem to accept that we crossed interstellar space in a retrofitted mining platform." Dr. Marcus Chen nodded, still recovering from radiation treatments after the challenge. Their technology followed a different evolutionary path. They perfected each development stage before moving to the next. We humans tend to cobble together solutions from whatever's available, which is precisely why they find us disturbing. Elena replied, turning from the window. "We're unpredictable. Their models can't calculate what we'll do next because we don't always take the most efficient path." The door chimed, announcing a visitor. A Meridian delegate entered, a being of crystalline structure whose translucent body refracted light in hypnotic patterns. "Captain Santos," the being communicated through a translator device. "I am First Facet Zura of the Meridian Trading Consortium. Your arrival has created quite the stir among Council species." Elena bowed slightly, following the protocol her team had studied. "We appreciate your visit, First Facet. Earth hopes to establish beneficial relations with all Coalition members." The crystalline being's surface rippled in what the translator identified as amusement. "There are those who would prefer you hadn't arrived at all. The Vexarians have maintained military dominance for 3 centuries. Your challenge victory suggests their superiority may be overstated. We seek friendship, not political disruption," Elena replied carefully. "Perhaps, but disruption follows innovation, something your species seems to excel at." The Meridian shifted color slightly. "The Thraxi philosophers have already submitted a formal request to study human emotional patterns. The Vault have expressed interest in your problem-solving algorithms. Even the reclusive Dendri have emerged from their hibernation cycle to observe these proceedings." Marcus leaned forward. "Is that unusual?" The Dendri predicted the Vexarian rise to power 5 centuries ago. They only emerge when significant power shifts approach. The crystalline being pulsed with subtle light patterns. "Take care in your presentation tomorrow. Many here would benefit from alternative leadership in Coalition matters." After the Meridian departed, Elena turned to her team. "It seems we've landed in the middle of political currents we barely understand." Rivera nodded grimly. "Every oppressive system creates resentment. We're being positioned as a potential counterweight to Vexarian influence." "Then we need to be extremely careful," Elena replied. "We didn't come all this way to become pawns in an interstellar power struggle." The ship's communication system chimed. "Captain Santos, Admiral Zortal requests your presence at the pre-summit briefing." As Elena prepared to depart, Marcus touched her arm. "Remember what we learned in the challenge, Captain. They respect capability more than diplomacy. Show strength alongside wisdom." Elena nodded. Humanity's first steps onto the galactic stage would define Earth's position for centuries to come. She straightened her uniform and headed toward the door, ready to represent her species among the stars. The summit chamber hummed with the combined technologies of a dozen species. Holographic displays shimmered above the central table, rotating through biological analyses of humanity as Captain Elena Santos concluded her presentation on Earth's development and capabilities. In summary, while we acknowledge our technological limitations, humans offer unique perspectives through our adaptive problem-solving and collaborative history. We seek peaceful exchange of knowledge with all coalition species. The chamber's careful silence was broken by Admiral Zortal. The Vexarian position remains unchanged. Species with pre-unified planetary governments and non-standardized developmental paths pose unpredictable risks to coalition stability. Humanity should be classified as a developing species under supervision protocols. The Meridian representative's crystalline form pulsed with disagreement frequencies. The humans crossed interstellar space with repurposed mining equipment. Their ingenuity alone merits full recognition. Alina watched the delicate political dance unfold. The coalition was less unified than Earth had believed, with the Vexarians maintaining control through technological supremacy rather than genuine consensus. A wizened Thraxi philosopher raised a gnarled limb. We have observed the human challenge performance. Their cognitive frameworks operate on multiple simultaneous tracks, emotional and logical processing occurring in parallel rather than sequentially. Most fascinating. As the debate intensified, security alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing the chamber. Unauthorized vessel detected, announced the station's eye. Security protocols compromised. Admiral Zortal accessed the command controls. Shrike incursion vessels detected in sectors 7 through 12. They've bypassed our outer defenses. The holographic displays shifted to security feeds showing sleek, predatory ships deploying boarding craft. The Shrike, a species long thought dormant, had launched a coordinated attack on the summit. The primary evacuation routes have been compromised, reported a Vexarian security officer as the chamber shuddered under weapons fire. Structural integrity at 60% and falling. Alina exchanged glances with Marcus and Rivera, who had joined her for the presentation. Without hesitation, she stepped forward. Admiral, your security systems allow for environmental reconfiguration, correct? This is hardly the time for technological curiosity, human, Zortal snapped. Your ventilation systems can be repurposed. Dr. Chen, access that environmental terminal. We can create pressure differentials to establish safe evacuation paths. Marcus nodded, moving quickly to the terminal, while Rivera organized the diplomats into groups based on compatible atmospheric requirements. Over the security channel, reports of casualties mounted as Shrike boarding parties advanced through the station. As Marcus's fingers flew across the alien interface, translating its functions through pattern recognition rather than language, the chamber's floor suddenly pulsed with strange symbols. Nothing like Vexarian script. "What have you done?" demanded Zortal. "Nothing," Marcus replied, eyes wide. "The system is activating independently." The floor panels shifted, revealing previously hidden mechanisms of distinctly different design from the surrounding Vexarian technology. A scanning beam swept across the gathered species, pausing when it reached the humans. "Genetic profile confirmed," announced a voice unlike the station's eye. "Contingency species identified. Awakening protocol initiated." The central table reconfigured, projecting ancient symbols before reformatting to a communication interface that addressed Alina directly. "We are the forerunners, architects of the Great Seeding. Your species has evolved as predicted to possess the cognitive variability necessary for what comes." The gathered diplomats stared in shock as the hidden technology activated fully. The Vexarian elder present, a being whose genetic line stretched back to the coalition's founding, trembled visibly. "Impossible," the elder whispered. "The ancients were believed extinct for 50 millennia." Admiral Zortal stepped forward, mandibles clicking in agitation. "This technology falls under coalition security jurisdiction. I demand immediate control access." The system responded by locking down completely, its sensors pulsing. "Access restricted to identified contingency patterns only. Human neural architecture required." As the Shrike attackers breached the adjacent section, the ancient system displayed one final message. "The eclipse approaches. Only the unpredictable may survive what comes. The secured laboratory deep within the Coalition flagship hummed with activity as Dr. Marcus Chen studied the Forerunner data archives. 3 days had passed since the Shrike attack on the summit station. The combined Coalition forces had repelled the Invaders, but not before the ancient technology had transferred itself to secure storage devices that responded only to human neural patterns. "This confirms it," Marcus said, looking up from the holographic display. The Forerunners seeded early Earth with specific genetic markers 50,000 years ago. They had created predictive models showing that human cognitive patterns, our balance between logical and intuitive thinking, would be necessary to face something they call the eclipse. Captain Elena Santos studied the translated data streams with Security Chief Rivera. "What exactly is this eclipse?" According to these archives, it's a semi-conscious cosmic phenomenon that exists partially outside normal spacetime. It consumes civilizations by adapting to and neutralizing any defense it encounters. Marcus adjusted his glasses. The Forerunners discovered it operates by predicting patterns of organized resistance. Their models showed that human consciousness, with our seemingly random intuitive leaps, creates decision patterns the eclipse cannot predict effectively. Rivera frowned. So an advanced civilization engineered humanity as a weapon against a space monster. "More like a key to a lock," Marcus corrected. "They couldn't defeat it themselves because their thought patterns were too structured, too predictable." The laboratory door slid open as Admiral Zortal entered, accompanied by representatives from the Coalition Council. The Vexarian's posture radiated tension despite his rigid self-control. "The dormant Sentinel network has activated at the galaxy's edge," he announced without preamble. The readings match Forerunner descriptions of initial eclipse manifestation. Elena stood. "How long do we have?" "Approximately 60 standard days before it reaches populated systems." The Admiral's compound eyes focused on the human delegation. "The Coalition Council has authorized a strategic alliance with Earth, effective immediately." Marcus studied the data tablet Zortal handed him. This deployment strategy places human vessels at all frontline positions. The Admiral's mandibles clicked once. "Your species possesses the necessary unpredictability to engage the entity effectively, according to Forerunner data." Elena exchanged glances with her team. The Vexarian proposal would deploy humans as shields while their own worlds fortified defensive positions. The strategy was logical, efficient, and exploitative. "We'll need time to review this proposal carefully," she replied diplomatically. After the Vexarian delegation departed, Rivera voiced what they all thought. "They're using us as sacrificial assets." "Can you blame them?" Marcus asked. "We're newcomers with limited technology. If the Forerunner predictions are correct, they need us to survive. If not, they've lost nothing valuable by their metrics." Elena walked to the communication terminal. "We need to send this data to Earth immediately. Whatever's coming affects all of us." "The Coalition has restricted all outbound communications," Rivera reminded her. "They don't want this information spreading until their defenses are prepared." Elena's expression hardened. "Chief Rivera, do we still have those autonomous comm drones in the Dauntless storage bay?" 3 units, designed for deep space survey communication. Rivera smiled slowly as she understood. "They're not on any Coalition inventory lists." "Dr. Chen, can you compress the essential Forerunner data?" Marcus nodded. "I'll need about 6 hours to isolate the critical elements." "Do it. We're encrypting this data with a quantum key and sending it to Earth through relay drones." Elena looked through the viewport at the gathered Coalition fleet. Humanity entered this stage as equals, not as tools to be sacrificed. Outside the laboratory, a Thraxi observer silently recorded the humans' conversation, its compound eyes blinking with interest at their actions. The philosophical implications were most fascinating indeed. The Vexarian command ship Inevitable Calculation shuddered as another wave of energy washed over its quantum shields. Admiral Zortal watched the strategic displays with growing concern as 3 more coalition vessels winked out of existence. The eclipse had proven even more devastating than the Forerunner archives had predicted. "The 7th Battle Group has been neutralized," reported his tactical officer. "The entity appears to be adapting to our phase shield frequencies." "Adjust to random pattern delta," ordered Zortal, his exoskeleton plates shifting to indicate highest alert status. "That pattern was compromised 4 minutes ago, Admiral. The eclipse anticipates our adjustments before implementation." For the first time in his distinguished career, Admiral Zortal faced an enemy that their perfect calculations could not defeat. The Coalition's most advanced warships, with their precise formations and optimized tactical algorithms, were being systematically dismantled by something that seemed to predict every move. The communication officer's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple warp signatures approaching from Sector 9. Reinforcements weren't scheduled for." Zortal stopped as the view screen displayed the incoming vessels. "Those aren't Coalition ships." The approaching fleet defied all standard formation protocols. Hundreds of vessels of varying sizes and configurations dropped out of hyperspace in a seemingly chaotic arrangement. Mining platforms retrofitted with weapons, research vessels with reinforced hulls, even what appeared to be recreational craft modified for combat. Each ship bore the distinctive markings of Earth. "This is Captain Elena Santos of Earth Fleet Command," came the transmission. "Operation Wildcard is commencing. All Coalition vessels, please acknowledge receipt of tactical protocols." Zortal's compound eyes narrowed at the designation. "Earth Fleet Command. You had 1 vessel 3 weeks ago." Elena's image smiled slightly on the view screen. "We've been busy, Admiral. The Dauntless wasn't our only ship, just our first ambassador. Earth has united its resources in response to the data we received." Before Zortal could demand explanation, his tactical officer interrupted. "Admiral, the human vessels are deploying in. I can't identify any known formation pattern. Each ship appears to be operating independently." "Precisely," Elena confirmed. "Every captain has significant autonomy. There is no central command structure for the eclipse to predict." The view screen showed human ships darting between the massive tentacles of dark energy that comprised the eclipse's physical manifestation. Where Vexarian ships moved in perfect, predictable patterns, the human vessels zigged and zagged seemingly at random, firing weapons from unexpected angles and constantly changing speed and direction. "Their tactics are completely inefficient," muttered the tactical officer. "Yet they remain uncaptured," Zortal observed. "Patch me through to their command frequency." Once connected, he addressed Captain Santos directly. "Your fleet's survival is significant but insufficient. The eclipse adapts quickly. How do you propose to actually damage it?" "That's where Dr. Chen's research team comes in," Elena replied. "Admiral, we're transmitting specifications for what we call probability disruptors. They generate fields of quantum uncertainty that prevent the eclipse from accurately predicting matter and energy states." Zortal reviewed the transmitted data, his enhanced mind quickly grasping the implications. "This technology requires organic operators making non-algorithmic decisions. Our automated systems cannot implement it." "Exactly," Elena confirmed. "The technology needs human operators because only our brains naturally maintain multiple contradictory possibilities simultaneously, what you call inefficient thinking, and we call imagination." As they spoke, the eclipse's energy tendrils recoiled from contact with the first activated disruptor fields. For the first time since the entity entered Coalition space, it appeared confused, unable to predict where to strike next. Admiral Zortal made the most difficult decision of his career. "Captain Santos, the Coalition fleet is at your disposal. Direct us as needed." The human response was immediate and simple. "Let's show this thing what cooperative chaos looks like." 2 weeks of relentless combat had pushed the eclipse back to the galactic fringe. The combined human Coalition fleet maintained a constantly shifting defense line, probability disruptors creating zones of quantum uncertainty where the entity's predictive capabilities failed. On the bridge of the command ship Dauntless, now heavily modified with Vexarian and Meridian technology, Captain Elena Santos studied the tactical display with Admiral Zortal and representatives from 7 species. "The containment strategy is working," Elena noted. "The Eclipse retreats wherever we deploy the disruptor fields." "Yet we cannot maintain this indefinitely," replied the Admiral. "The entity is conserving its energy, adapting slowly to each new disruption pattern." Marcus Chen entered the bridge, his environmental suit now interwoven with Thraxi sensory technology. The Forerunner archives predicted this. The Eclipse cannot be destroyed completely. It exists partially outside conventional space-time. The Meridian representative's crystalline form pulsed with problem-solving frequencies. "Then permanent containment is our only option." Elena nodded. "We need to establish a network of probability disruptor stations throughout Coalition space. Each will require integrated crews from multiple species." Admiral Zortal's compound eyes narrowed, considering implications. Such a network would fundamentally alter Coalition structure. Each station would require human operators alongside our own personnel. "Exactly," Elena replied. "Not a Vexarian coalition with human assistance, but a genuine partnership of equals." Before further discussion could proceed, the tactical officer's urgent report cut through the conversation. "Eclipse surge detected. It's concentrating attack force on Sector 7, directly targeting the Vexarian homeworld." The tactical display confirmed the nightmare scenario. The Eclipse had diverted its primary mass toward the heart of Vexarian civilization, bypassing the main defensive line. "All ships, reposition to intercept," ordered Admiral Zortal. "Priority 1 is homeworld protection." Elena watched the energy readings with growing concern. The Eclipse concentration is too dense. Standard vessels won't reach it in time. Making a decision she knew might end her life, Elena activated the ship's emergency protocols. "This is Captain Santos. The Dauntless will intercept using experimental hyperdrive modifications. We'll deploy our primary disruptor at the Eclipse's core mass." Admiral Zortal turned to her, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Your vessel cannot survive that proximity. The energy concentrations will overwhelm your shields." "Probably," Elena agreed, meeting his compound gaze steadily. "But we'll buy enough time for your reinforcements to establish a permanent containment field." The Admiral's exoskeleton shifted colors in a pattern Elena had never seen before. "Why would you sacrifice your existence for the Vexarian homeworld? We have treated your species as inferiors since first contact." Elena's smile held no bitterness. "Because that's what humans do, Admiral. We protect life, even when it's different from our own." As the Dauntless prepared for its desperate maneuver, Admiral Zortal made an unprecedented decision. "All units, this is Admiral Zortal. My flagship will accompany the human vessel. Together we will secure the safety corridor." The Vexarian crew stared in shock. Their supreme commander had just violated the most sacred directive of their society, the preservation of superior genetic lines above all else. The Dauntless and the Vexarian flagship surged forward together, probability disruptors at maximum capacity, directly into the Eclipse's core mass. The combined shields created a disruption so powerful that the entity's energy patterns destabilized, creating the opening the Coalition fleet needed. 3 months later, in the gleaming new chamber of the Galactic Concord, Ambassador Zortal addressed the assembled representatives of 16 species. The former admiral's exoskeleton bore new markings, symbols of transformation rather than conquest. "Today we formalize not merely an alliance, but a new understanding," he announced. "The humans taught us that true strength lies not in perfection, but in diversity of approach. Not in domination, but in cooperation." He gestured toward Captain Elena Santos, now bearing the scars of her near sacrifice, saved only by the Admiral's unexpected intervention. "Attention," Zortal concluded, his voice carrying the weight of history. "The humans are here. and together we will face whatever comes next among the stars.